Eye Contact, a Mark Manning Mystery, Book 2. Author, Michael Kraft. Publisher, Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Activity in the Journal's newsroom is more hectic than usual as the city gears up for the festival's opening. The visiting pantheon of cultural and political celebrities, the presidential address, the human rights rally, and the counter-demonstration by the CFC. With the approach of the late morning deadline for the afternoon edition, the commotion intensifies with ringing phones, scurrying copykits, and conversations shouted over the partitions of reporters' cubicles. Manning, however, is assignment-free this morning. Nathan Kane had made it clear that his time should be dedicated to the Nolan and Zarnik investigations. When Manning arrived today, he talked to his editor, Gordon Smith, volunteering to help with one of the festival stories. But Smith only reiterated Kane's orders, since there's nothing Manning can do with his assignment until his 5 o'clock meeting with Zarnik at the planetarium. He's been spending his time on the phone arranging for estimates to get his car repaired. As he feared, the procedure is shaping into a bureaucratic hassle. But at least it keeps his mind occupied with something other than his situation with Neil. In spite of Neil's request that Manning not phone him, Manning has called Neil's office several times already. There's always some excuse. He's out. He's in a meeting. He's on the other line. While Manning can assume that Neil is truly swamped today, he suspects that the receptionist at the architectural firm has been instructed by Neil to screen Manning's calls. While scribbling another note to clip to his insurance policy, Manning hears something that catches his attention through the hubbub of the newsroom. Daryl's voice lilts above the others, saying, "What's the big rush, David?" But David doesn't answer. Instead, it's the unmistakable voice of his uncle, Hector Bosch. "Get out of my way," he snarls, and there are sounds of a struggle with something that clatters against the wall, possibly Daryl's mail cart. Manning rises from his chair to see what's going on. He hears David say, "Wait, Uncle Hector, don't!" Manning has barely stuck his head from around the partition to look into the corridor when Hector rushes into the cubicle, slamming Manning back into his chair. With fire in his eyes, he yells, "You reprehensible scapegrace!" Stunned, Manning watches David and Daryl rush up behind Hector. David claps an arm over Hector's shoulder. Daryl keeps his distance, gaping from the hall. Heads bob up from behind the partitions, wondering what the uproar is about. At a loss for words, Manning says lamely, "Good morning, Hector." "Don't good morning me, Mr. Manning. There are times when civility is but a mockery of decency." Hector?" says Manning with a calming gesture of his hands, trying to rise from his chair. But with a jab of his fingertips, Hector forces Manning down again, telling him, "Quiet! You've said enough. God knows you've done enough." People are gathering in the corridor, straining for a look inside the cubicle. David leans over his uncle's shoulder. "Please, Hector, not here, not now." Brushing his nephew's hand away, Hector turns his head to tell him, "When I want your advice, I'll ask for it. You certainly didn't heed my counsel, and now it's led to this." Hector returns his attention to Manning, but now David is angry. He tells Hector, "It's only led to this because you've chosen to have a cow over it. I'm an adult. Mind your damn business." Hector spins to face him. "You made it my business by bearing your soul to me this morning." "You can bet I won't make that mistake again." "Your only mistake, young man, was sleeping with him." Hector whips an accusing index finger toward Manning, and there's a collective gasp from the growing pack of onlookers. Manning's jaw drops. Hector turns to tell him, "My God, just look at the two of you. Now you're even dressing alike. But you, Manning, you're a seducer, a predator." He lunges to grab Manning by the shirt. "A disgrace to the profession of journalism." Both David and Daryl rush to pull Hector back. "Watch it," Manning warns Hector, rising, facing him nose to nose. Manning controls his anger, but tells him firmly, "If there's something that needs to be discussed, we can go to a conference room. You've already strayed into slanderous territory, so I'd recommend that you zip it." Hector puffs his chest and smooths the jacket of his natty black suit, ruffled during the brief skirmish. "If that remark was meant as a threat, Mr. Manning, You're wasting your breath. He strokes the bristles of his trim little mustache, first the right side, then the left. If there are any threats to be made, they'll be coming from me, and they won't be nearly so veiled. Are you aware that I'm on a first-name basis with virtually every publisher in New York? Manning is tempted to ask him, so the hell what? Hector continues, though this whole sordid episode is profoundly embarrassing to me, you can rest assured that I shan't hesitate to share it with my publisher, who happens to be not only a colleague but a friend of your own publisher, Nathan Kane. They share many of the same values that are affronted by your reprobate actions. Your harassment and seduction of a much younger male co-worker will surely shock the refined sensibilities of these upstanding gentlemen. I would be very surprised indeed if Nathan Kane concluded that your presence in this office is still an asset to the Journal. There's a moment of silence. Hector notes with satisfaction that the impact of his words is now reflected in the pallor of Manning's face. Hector smiles. He touches up the knot of Manning's necktie. With a curt bow of his head, Hector tells him, "Good day, Mr. Manning." Then he turns on his heel and struts down the corridor, parting the gaping crowd of onlookers. David is about to take off after him when he turns back to Manning. "Sorry, Mark. He's drawn the wrong conclusions about this. I'll try to set him straight." He reaches to give Manning's shoulder a squeeze and scurries after Hector. Darrell hasn't said a word, but has witnessed the entire confrontation, absorbing every delicious detail. With a broad Cheshire grin, he sidles into the cubicle and opens his mouth to speak. "Don't," says Manning, fumbling to sit in his chair. "Just don't." The rest of the day doesn't improve much, though there are no subsequent shouting matches volleyed over Manning's desk. News of the one that did occur has spread throughout the paper. While he expected to become the butt of relentless taunting because of the incident, he was wrong. Far worse, he has been shunned. Co-workers won't look him in the eye. Many actually shift directions in the hall in order not to encounter him. It's as if they actually believed Hector's exaggerated, misinformed accusations. Shortly after 4:30, Manning decides it's time to head out. He needs to meet Zarnik at the planetarium by 5 and work out the logistics of getting to the Mid-America building by 5:30. It's going to be a tight squeeze. He switches off his desk lamp, then lifts the phone and dials an extension. "David, let's get going. It might be better if you just met me in the parking lot." Outside, behind the Journal building, a bright afternoon is cooled by a brisk wind off the lake. Manning normally anticipates the first sight of his car after work as one of the little highlights of his day, but today he dreads seeing it. He walks out of his way in order to approach it from the driver's side, avoiding the view of last night's damage. Unlocking the car with the fob button, he tosses his laptop carry-all and his blazer onto the back seat. Then gets in. The black car is hot inside, so he starts the engine, running the air conditioning while waiting for David. Not more than a minute later, David trots out of the building and zigzags between the other cars toward Manning. Then he sees the damage, which stops him in his tracks. He approaches with caution, mouthing through the closed windows. "What happened?" Manning waves him in. David tosses his own blazer, which matches Manning's, onto the back seat. Sitting in front, he repeats the question. "Let's just say I had a bad night," Manning answers and pulls out of the lot. And David tries to assure him. "They'll be able to fix it." After a pause, he says, "I'm afraid to ask, but did you tell Neil?" Manning nods, almost inaudibly. David asks, "And how did it go?" Eyes on the road, Manning answers without inflection. "Not well at all. He packed a few things and went to stay with Roxanne for a while." Subdued and thoughtful, David tells him, "I'm sorry, Mark. I've done a lot of thinking since yesterday, and I've come to understand that this is all my fault." Manning turns his head to voice a feeble protest, but David continues, "Don't tell me. I know it takes two to tango. But the truth is, I started it. I pursued you. I tantalized you. I lured you into a situation that all your instincts told you to avoid. I thought it was just harmless fun, but it's made a mess, and I'm sorry. I'm stupid." "No," Manning tells him. "You're young, that's all. And I think you've just gained a little wisdom. The Friday afternoon traffic is heavy, with many city people getting out of town. to avoid the weekend crowds. Many others pour into town to take part in the festivities. Everyone, though, seems headed for the new stadium, eager to circle the just finished structure and glimpse its avant-garde architecture. Its grand entryway, its flowering boulevards, a battalion of specially recruited white-gloved traffic cops practices guiding the torrent of cars with civility and humor. A dress rehearsal for tomorrow's big opening. And David has been peering at the distant stadium through the side window when Manning takes a turn that will lead them away toward the planetarium. Manning asks him, "Why did you decide to talk to your uncle about this?" "Like I said, I'm stupid." "No, David, not at all. I know that your uncle means a lot to you, and I know he's had a big influence on your upbringing. I heard that you came out to him during college, and that he didn't react well. Still, it was a brave move on your part. It showed a lot of integrity. My guess is that you confided in him again today in order to give him a second chance. To put this issue at rest between you?" With a lame laugh, David tells Manning, "You're more analytical about it than I was. I just wanted to level with him. Trouble is, he was in no mood for honesty, and as you heard only too well, he got the situation backwards." Manning turns to face David with a smile. "It doesn't help that we've started dressing like the Bobbsey twins." "You've noticed," says David, embarrassed. "They are dressed like twins today. Khaki slacks, white shirts, striped silk ties, navy blazers. I wasn't even conscious that I was doing it until Hector pointed it out. Sorry." "Stop apologizing. You look great, and I'm flattered." "I've arranged to have a talk with Hector later tonight. I'll make sure he understands what happened. Maybe when he calms down, he'll make an apology in the newsroom. I'll try to work it out." Manning sighs. "Any effort in that direction would be greatly appreciated." The planetarium is now visible beyond the next turn of the road. "Meanwhile," says Manning, "we've got some reporting to do. Unfortunately, I didn't expect traffic to be this heavy, and we can't be in two places at once. Can you postpone your appointment at the Mid-America laser site?" "No," says Manning. "It's nearly 5 already, and Utley had to pull strings to book the 5:30 inspection. I can't fiddle with it now. But here's another idea. I'll meet Zarnik here at the planetarium while you turn around in the car and go to the Mid-America building for me." "Sounds like a plan." Pulling into the parking lot at the planetarium, Manning asks, "Do you have your press pass and cell phone?" David nods. Manning tells him, "Drive to the east parking entrance of the building. It's not very well marked because it leads to the private parking ramp for the Central States Club. They're expecting my car at the gate, and the guard will direct you. Use your pass if you have to. Explain that I sent you and hope they play along. When you've made it up to the laser platform at the top of the tower, call me." "Sure," says David. "I think I can handle that." Manning stops at the curb in front of the steps to the planetarium, and they both get out of the car. They grab their jackets from the back seat, making sure each has the right one. Manning takes his computer case, then David gets in behind the wheel. Before closing the door, he reaches to shake Manning's hand. "Good luck in there, Mark. And thanks for everything in spite of the glitches. These have been the best 2 weeks of my life." Manning musses David's hair. "Call me from the tower." Just inside the main door of the planetarium, Manning is surprised to find Pavo Zarnick waiting for him, chewing one of his fingernails. When Zarnik sees Manning, he glances at his watch and says with no trace of an accent, "Thank God, you're about 2 minutes early. Come on, hurry." And he leads Manning toward the back stairs that lead up to his laboratory. Over the clatter of their feet on the metal stairs, Manning asks, "Why the big rush, Professor? What could be so time-sensitive about the technical notes you prepared for me?" At the top of the stairs, Zarnik stops facing Manning. With a featureless expression, he says flatly, "There are no notes. Did you really expect any?" Manning senses that at last this charade may unravel. He does not answer Zarnik's question, but merely jerks his head in the direction of the door to the laboratory. "I'm at your disposal, Professor." Zarnik nods, leading the reporter down the hall. He walked with a quick, sure stride, not the skittering shuffle that has previously characterized his gait. Arriving at the door with the red plastic sign, he unlocks it with a key that hangs with the whistle around his neck. He pushes the door open for Manning, who steps inside. The lights are already on, but the banks of computers are dark and silent. Zarnik closes the door behind them. Manning stands in the clearing near the center of the room. Zarnik says nothing, but crosses to his desk, checks a page of the calculator, checks his watch, checks for something in a drawer. Choose a hangnail, Manning asks. Is there something you wanted to tell me? Not yet, says Zarnik. Things will soon begin to explain themselves. Come here, please. And he walks beyond the desk. Behind a row of metal cabinets, Manning follows. There are a few square yards of clear floor space behind the bank of electronic hardware, where a pair of sturdy wooden chairs flank a small table. There's nothing on the table until Manning sets his computer there. It seems that the furniture has been hastily arranged. Zarnik gestures that Manning should sit, telling him, You'll be able to hear everything from here. Have your notebook ready, and for God's sake, be quiet. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.